Oh hey, Stever the Beaver here, and today we're going to mix it up a little bit, and I'm going to rank the top 48 Stephen King books that I've had the opportunity to read. Um, this is purely just, my opinion. I'm just going to say the same thing that every booktuber has said on the topic, but I feel like the need to say that. This list could change at any given time. I'm still not even 100% sure that it's the order that I like it. That being said, I am including short story collections as well as novels and novellas. So it's hard to rank those, So we're gonna squeeze those in, and I rank these based on how much I like them. Everyone has their own opinion on some of these stories. I hope I have a few hot takes. Um, Definitely gonna have a few hot takes. So please leave something in the comments if you like or absolutely hate my opinions on things. That's great. I want to talk some King with some other fans that are out there. So without further ado, I'm going to start with number 48. What I think was arguably my least favorite. It took me a long time. For as short as this is, I feel like a lot more could have happened, and that's From a Buick 8. It has an interesting premise. It has ties to the Dark Tower. I'm going to try to not put very many spoilers, if any, in this video, but I might let a couple things slide. For instance, when we're talking about Dark Tower, this did not really tie into the Dark Tower in the way that I thought it would, but okay. You can be your own judge on this one. It took too long. I didn't really feel connected to anything, and the payoffs didn't feel very rewarding. So that's my opinion. If you love this book, I haven't seen very many people that do. I'm happy for you. And on to the next one. The Dark Half. Stephen King has done a lot of different plots that, revolve around a writer and things that happen in a writer's life. And for some reason, this one just fell through. It felt very hollow to me. There were some cool spots. I like the idea that the bad guy, is coming to life through his writing, okay? It just did not do it for me. That's why it's going to fall to number 47 on the list. That's all I really have to say about that. Next, I think this book was really overly publicized maybe when it came out. I remember I always have heard of it and seen it everywhere. When I finally read it, it just didn't do too much for me. So 46, Gerald's Game. There could be an interesting premise, but really, I just feel like the lady was tied to a bed the whole time. There's a cool tie-in with Dolores Claiborne, but it just kind of fell through too. It was weird. I don't know what was going on there. I like it when there's references. As you probably well know, Stephen King does a lot of referencing to his other works, especially when we're talking about Dark Tower related things. I'll get to some of those, I'm sure, as the video commences. But I don't know. The tie between this and Dolores Claiborne is just not really as strong as I guess it could be. All right, here's another hot take. People love this book. We're talking about number 45 on the list. They love it. It's a decent young adult novel, but I have problems with it. That's The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. It's fine as it is. I don't hate it. It's a spooky story. Someone gets lost in the woods. I don't really have much interest in baseball per se, but it had its ups. It had its ups. But I think that with a minor spoiler, that the whole book pretty much was on a realistic playing field, and it took a strange paranormal jump at the end, if I'm allowed to say that much. And I didn't like that. The whole story didn't have the paranormal element to it like many Stephen King's do, or this one just was kind of strange. But for a young adult book, this is a pretty decent read. So let's move on. This will be the first of the Richard Bachman books that I've read. I haven't read all of them, but I know which ones I like and which ones I don't like so much. you can't tell what this is because I don't have a sleeve for it, but this is Blaze. And, Blaze was pretty cool from what I remember. However, all right, I don't even know really what bad to say. It just kind of fell flat a little bit. I'm only talking about the negatives about these books, aren't I? But I am pretty low up on the list. That I have to weigh these options based on why do I like this or why do I really not like this too much. This is, of course, a different take on maybe Of Mice and Men. I'm assuming is what he was going for with this, and it had funny parts, but it just is. It's pretty average to me. Blaze, it was okay, but there's a reason that it is number 44 on the list. All right, like Gerald's Game, I feel like this one was really put out there a lot when it came out. If I'm not mistaken, this is from 1999. Mind you, I'm never going to be an English major. I just read these for fun, and I am a complete amateur in every sense of the word when it comes to my opinions on any type of literature. So take what I say with a grain of salt. But what number are we on? Oh, I even skipped a number. So before I say, hold that thought for 1 second. The next book is the only book I'm not going to have a physical copy of. So if my editing skills prove to be anything at all, it would appear right here. And I don't have high hopes of that. But that would be Danse Macabre. One of his, I think only 2 nonfiction books. This book discussed everything he was inspired by, and as far as literature and films, and it was very interesting. And what I can say very positive about Danse Macabre is that I learned a lot of good literature, movies, and so on from reading that. And he has a list of references of all of the different things that he enjoyed so much. I want to say it was a little long-winded, and maybe I didn't want to read about every single. It took me a while. He really dove into The Haunting of Hill House, and I was able to read that recently, and it was good. I don't know if it did as much for me as it did for him, but Danse Macabre, it was pretty good. That was number 43 on my list, and it has plenty of awesome recommendations into the mind of the man that made all of these crazy things that we're talking about here today. So back to where I was going with this is Bag of Bones. This is going to be number 42. It's like a solid kind of ghost story. I remember. Guess what? It's about a writer, and the writer's wife dies, and he goes to their little camp. And I don't remember too much. It's been a while. My opinions are solely upon what I really did like about the book, what I remember I liked, and then I always remember a couple things that were like off-putting. I always thought it was sort of strange, minor spoiler, that the main character in this book got with like a really young girl, like that was a mother and stuff, and it's sort of, I don't know, I feel like he was stretching the boundaries a little bit in this book, especially because he's there like mourning his dead wife, if I remember correctly. Maybe it needs a reread, and I'll have stronger opinions of it, but 42, it's not the lowest one on the list, but there's better. Just stick around. There's definitely better. Now, this is a tough one as well. I really enjoyed the Dark Tower series. This is going to be the first Dark Tower book on the list. This one, I feel like, was just not very memorable. I read it once really quick. I wanted to get through it and finish the journey. And Song of Susannah, it took a slightly different direction. I don't hate it, of course. And it would be worth a reread as well. I've only gone through the entire journey to the tower one time, and I'm willing to do it again. But if my memory serves me correct, this one didn't really stick out to me as much as it was a sort of transition to move the story a little bit further along, but not very memorable. Okay, now we're going back into some more drug-induced times, different times. What year is this? 1987. Okay, We're talking about some pretty crazy stuff here. Aliens, man. The Tommyknockers. You know, this book, I did like this one a lot as well. It has a lot of thought-provoking things. Did it drag on? Yes, it did. It did. But I do like the concept of how these aliens were able to, like, zone the people in. They weren't able to go beyond a certain barrier. And he had some pretty interesting things figured out here. I can't say too much bad about it other than it was, like, bloated. And, man, you had to be pretty far out to come up with some of these things. So it's worth a try. I'd say it's worth a try, but it's pretty far out there. You'll find later on in this list that I like some of the things that are really far out there because of that, and sometimes it works. And in this case, it didn't really work as well as I think some of the other ones did. So that was number 40, the Tommyknockers. So now we're in the 30s. We're on 39. And tell me, who's got the time? Who's got the time for all of that right there? Since we said the Tommyknockers was a little bit bloated. Holy cow. This book, Desperation, had good, solid Stephen King plots and some twists and some pretty spooky characters and, you know, tack, the, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know, the alien beast thing that gets into people, you know. Desperation, it's got some good stuff. I think it does have some good stuff, but it's just so long, and I just feel like it just took me too long. That's all I really can gripe about this book, to round into the 30s here. And I like that it has a sister book, The Regulators. That book, you'll find that higher on this list. I'm not gonna ruin my my numbers just yet, but look out for that one, because I thought that one was, even though that's an example of a crazy throw some stuff at the wall story. This one was a little more standard King, you know, the Bachman versus King thing. Maybe I like the Bachman fast-paced throw it at you. It's a little bit different, right? It's good. It's long. Maybe you'll like it. Give it a shot. I liked it 39th best. The next one, 38. I read this one recently for the first time, and I think it had solid writing. I never saw the movie. I didn't have any of it spoiled for me, and that is Cujo. I thought it turned out pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I was surprised by some parts of it. I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, and I'm not going to say too much about it, other than it was pretty solid. It was spooky at times. It being more fresh on my mind, I liked it. I think it was dragged out a little bit, you know, but he did a pretty decent job with this one. That's really all I gotta say about this one. It's worth it too. We're in like the 3-star category right now, you know. I'd say I'm pretty strict on saying what's 5-star. I'll have a lot of 4-star kind of category on this list, but to round up number 38, Cujo, pretty decent. All right, another one that I just read recently. Ooh, it's shiny. I have good things to say about this. You know why? Because it's tiny. You don't have to spend your whole life trying to read this book. And you get what it's about. And it had a good, humble meaning. I think I've seen people compare it to Thinner to some degree online. This is Elevation. This is a relatively new, maybe even as new as 2019, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. But that being said, 2018. It doesn't drag it out too long. It says what it needs to say, and I like that. I was able to get through it, enjoy it. Like I said, many of my brownie points go towards just how much I enjoyed the story relative to how long it was. Where's the payout, you know? Give me what I want. So this was a pretty decent start. Well, not a start. I mean, this is a pretty decent short novella, whatever you want to call it. I'm at a loss for words. But I'm going to go collect some more books, and we will let the list continue. Okay, to continue our list here, We're on number 36 now. And like I had mentioned before, it's difficult to include short story collections in a list as broad in many genres as what we're dealing with right now. But I'm going to have to do that, and number 36 is going to be Everything's Eventual. A pretty solid collection. I put it this far down the list for a number of reasons. I can remember some of these. Not as much as I thought I would, though. Little Sisters of Eloria, which is Dark Tower related. I think I remember liking the title story, Everything's Eventual. And it has some other memorable things like 1408 and Riding the Bullet. I know those have become famous to some extent. I believe the first story, Autopsy Room 4, was pretty gory and memorable in some type of way as well. It's a solid collection, and it's hard to include collections like this on a list. I can keep saying that over and over again, but it's true. It's good. There are just other collections that have made a more lasting impression on me, and the fact that I can't really remember too many of them kind of says, all right, well, it wasn't the best one. To move on, number 35. Maybe this is a hot take. Some people love this book. Some people hate this book. I like it just fine. But it does it have some problems too. Another lengthy book. That is The Talisman. I also like this edition that I was able to acquire. It's pretty decent. The Talisman, which is a fantasy type of story. Of course, they say it has ties to Dark Tower. I think it's, as a fantasy book standalone, it is a pretty solid book. I liked it. I have fond memories of this. It's in almost into the young adult category, if you will. I think this would be semi-decent for a young adult reader. The jumping between worlds, what a cool concept. I can't say enough about that. I like that part of it, that you can travel at far distances in a short amount of effort in one world and then jump back and you're somewhere completely different. That was a cool concept. And I like that he went on to write Black House later on. They say this has the Dark Tower ties. However, Black House was able to enlighten us about some things of the tower that we might not have seen had he not decided, to write a sequel to this book. And that's interesting to me. You could read the whole Dark Tower, but you might not get all of the information unless you read the sequel to this book, or other books for that matter. Next up, since we were talking about some short story collections, I want to just double check before I dig my own grave here. Number 34, Just After Sunset. Ooh. This one had some pretty cool stories in it. It's a short story collection with just a grab bag of different things. Particularly, I remember Stationary Bike. That was a zany kind of one. That sticks with me. And The Things They Left Behind, which was a kind of post 9/11 type of story, which was a little eerie, and I didn't expect that whenever I came across it. There's more, including The Cat from Hell, which was a funny story that I believe was like from years before this book was published, that was able to be included in here. And finally, I'll mention N, which will not be the first time that I mention some Lovecraftian style of writing, because I like that kind of thing. It's dark, it's a little different for our man, Mr. King, but, he's pretty good at it. I'm not saying that if he did that all the time, I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like it as much if he did it all the time, but when he does it just enough that I can enjoy a Lovecraftian-esque story, such as N from Just After Sunset. A pretty solid collection, if I may say so myself. Next, we're going to talk about number 33 on my list. I believe this is the only other, young adult book that falls into this list. And that is, you can't tell, can you see him? He's shiny. That's Eyes of the Dragon. A pretty cool book. I will say, I wish I got to read this when I was a kid. I didn't know about it. It was easy to read. It kept you captivated, and you wanted to know what was going on. There was some elements of the boy spying through the eyes, without saying too much. It was pretty cool. I didn't know what to expect when I went into this. I like this book for another reason. It is not the Dark Tower, but it's like parallel. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. It is like the parallel universe of the Dark Tower, where people sort of have similar names, but they're not the same people per se. Kind of like the Regulators and Desperation. Similar names, similar things about them, but they're not the same people. So Stephen King has a way of including different concepts of, you might go into this and be like King Roland and some other characters' names that seem familiar. Are they the same people? You can be the judge, but it's thought-provoking. And if you read this as a young adult and then read about the other things later on, you might already have an opinion about some of these characters, and you might be right or you might be wrong. Check it out. The Eyes of the Dragon. It's pretty cool. I recommend it for young adults or regular adults. The next one is an older book. Usually, or I haven't come across very many early novels yet, I don't believe. This one I thought was a very solid book. We're still in the 30s. We're talking about number 32. It's going to be Firestarter. I remember especially liking how dark the villain is in this, and how much, without saying too much, lots of destruction and crazy things do happen in this book. This one is definitely worth checking out. It's getting a little higher on the list. Did it stick with me so much that I want to put it up top? No. I think I might have seen the movie Drew Barrymore's little kid. I didn't really get into it too much. This was a pretty solid book. I just remember the bad guy was a really good bad guy, and they figured out some things. Still in the 3-star category. There's only going to be better from here. That's all I can say. All right, this might be a controversial opinion right now. We're talking about 31 now. This is one of the beefy boys again. Under the Dome. I will say right off the bat that this story, I liked it because when I read a chapter or two, it felt like I watched an episode of a TV show. Like, he had this thing figured out so well. There's a lot of characters to learn about. It's a beefy thing. You have to get into the world, get into his head a little bit. Some crazy stuff's happening. A giant dome has fallen down on the world, and these people are trapped. They can't go beyond the wall. What are they going to do? And you see all the crazy sides of people that they have that you might not have seen had there not been a disaster of sorts, and they're all contained in their own bubble. So what could go wrong? I think this book was really good. We're touching into 4-star territory here, because this is a solid read. It did drag on a little too much, but I remember a lot of it. I remember loving the good guys and hating the bad guys, and that's what it's all about, guys. Under the Dome. It might take a couple months out of your life, just depending on what you got going on, but it's a good journey. At the end, you'll feel like you watched an entire, mini-series or many, I don't know, seasons back to back, right? That's what it feels like. Under the Dome, it's good. It's good. So now, number 30. I went in, I have high hopes. I had high hopes. I like this book. This is a good one. Man, they said you got to read this if you're reading The Tower. If you're reading The Tower, you can't go on unless you've read Insomnia. You got to read it. It's big. It's worth it. And I will say, when we're talking about The Tower now, this book is important. I'm not going to say how. I might say it wasn't as important as I was kind of hoping it would be, but there are important things, and it is a crazy one. There's a lot of things that happen in this book right here. It's worth the ride. There's a reason it's tipping off the top 30. It is good. It's especially good if you are dedicated to The Tower and you want to know In my case, I needed to know. I tried to read them in such a way that I knew some things before I got to the ending. But there are other videos on YouTube to explain the ranking and which order you may or may not want to read Stephen King to get through The Dark Tower. You could be the person that reads them straight 1 through 7, or you could be the guy that just reads basically everything else in order to get what he's trying to say. Insomnia. It is important, and the story is good. It just is a little long, and it's a little bit out there. You'll like it. Now we're in the 20s. Can you believe it? If you can believe it, this might be a challenged opinion here of mine, but I'm going to say 29 is the dead zone. I remember liking this story, especially in the beginning. It sucked me in the way this guy could sort of see people's, if I'm not mistaken, he could see their futures, or he could see into them through touch, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. Definitely worth a reread. I remember liking it a lot. We're getting into books now that it's like no question that I like them, but how much did I like them? The Dead Zone had some pretty cool concepts. I wish I could say some more about it. I think that it's a pretty solid book. Check it out. I'm going to say that about every book. Now, we're going into the finale. Number 38. 28. Book number 7, The Dark Tower. After all that journey, all that time, and it ends up number 27 at 28 on the list. Are you kidding me? What is going on? Now, it's not a bad book, and it does give you what you want. You've read, and you are on the journey, and you want to know. What are you trying to say? What do you want to tell me? You find out in this book, and it was good. It was very good. At this point in your journey, you're ready to see the end. Was everything memorable in here? Meh. Was it still pretty good? It gives you what you want. He tied it all up. I'm not ruining the journey. You have to experience the journey for yourself. I think he wrapped it up pretty good. And that makes this 28 a pretty solid book. The Dark Tower, number 7. The Dark Tower. Okay. Let's see what's up here next. 27. This is a sequel to The Shining. Of course, that is Dr. Sleep. This one's been beat up. It's been read a couple times. But, man, this was great. I'm not going to sit here and rant too much about my, Shining and Kubrick and all of those things that everybody already has said before on the internet. But I really love how this takes a continuation from The Shining, the book, and tells a great story. I love the characters, so much so that when I did see Dr. Sleep, the movie, I was a little upset that things were changed around. But they did so to sort of go along with the Kubrick movie. I understand some certain liberties had to have been taken. But the book, as per usual, is better than the movie. And in this case, I would say that is 100% true. Dr. Sleep. Especially if you like The Shining. Even if you like the movie and want to see what else is going on, check out Dr. Sleep. We got one more chunky one, and I'm going to switch up the books again. And boy, is this is a tough one. This is a tough one for me to say, because I know this is really high on some people's list. But it had problems for me. I still liked it. Oh my. 26. It. This book had a ton of stuff going on in it. I mean, I love the references. I can think of a couple little Easter eggs, spoilers about other characters from other books. I'm not going to say them all right now. But there's one in particular that I really enjoyed that was in this. Was it necessary? I don't know. It builds a beautiful picture of growing up in a small town, and then the adult side to it. There's so much going on here. It's this big for a reason. But were there some things that drug on too much? Of course there were. Were there things that were unnecessary, that were a little unsettling, or why did we go in this direction? Yeah, there was that stuff. Is it related to the Dark Tower? Yeah, it is. Kind of in the way that Insomnia is. But is it really? Like, you be the judge. Personally, 26 is a pretty good spot for it on my list. Because it could have been better. I think it's a little overhyped. There's a lot of good character development. There's a lot of good twists and turns, and there's things that keep you going. It just fell a little bit short. And for that reason, what did I say? Number 26. We're going to switch it up here. See you in a second. Okay, next up, we are now in the top 25. We're going to go back to the Dark Tower with Wolves of the Calla. Wow. I had a large break between books 4 and 5 of this series, and this one did pay off. It had good payoffs. It did take me a little longer. I hate to be too redundant in saying that certain books are just a little bit too long. This one sort of did that a little bit, but it did have a lot of payout. We're getting into the pretty good stuff now, and I like some of the, even albeit they might be a little bit corny, some of the things that he joked about in the end of this book, but it was worth it. Wolves of the Calla. Along the journey of the Dark Tower, this is a pretty solid find. You're going to like that one. Now we're going to go into more controversial territory, I hope. I say that about a lot of things. This is my cool edition of this book, but this is not the edition that I read. However, I did read the complete and uncut version. That is The Stand. I found this, vintage. This is the cut and edited version, I suppose. And I looked pretty far and wide for this one, so this is pretty neat. I do want to read this someday. I know about some of the things that were added into the complete and uncut version, but even this version is gigantic. It's huge. And did it start strong? Yes, it was great. And then it sort of fell off into an abyss of really long story development, and some of that is really good. And I think some of the best story development are some of the things that were added into the complete edition. So, is this the best version right here, or is the complete version? I don't know. However, this is going to be number 24 on my list. I just don't love it as much as some people do. I can't help it. It's just what I like. So, like it or leave it, and let's move on. Number 23. I just read this recently. The most recently. I never read it before. I've seen the movie as a kid. I loved it. It was great. It was creepy. Carrie, his first novel by publication, right? Even if he had written some in his youth, which we'll get to some of that. It was short and sweet and to the point. That makes a good one for me. It had just what I wanted it to do. I like Carrie a lot. I definitely recommend that, and there's a reason it belongs for number 23. All right, number 22. Without saying any spoilers, this is another one that is pretty strong in the Dark Tower series. However, vampires just aren't my bag, baby. I like Salem's Lot. It was great, but at the end of the day, it is a vampire story. Maybe that's not a bad thing, it was good. The names all seemed a little too similar to me. A lot of 4-letter names. For some reason, I always think I'm like, who is that again? Why is everyone's name like Mark, Bill, and Mike and Mark? I don't know. There's just too many names that felt similar in my mind. Maybe that's just me being weird. This is, if I'm not mistaken, his second published novel. So of course there might be some things that he needed to iron out, and he does iron these things out. It is a good, solid novel. Salem's Lot, number 22. Number 21. Stephen King has said that this might be his favorite novel that he's written. I could be wrong about that. I will tell you this. The first half of this novel was not the favorite novel of Stephen King's that I have read. That's Lisey's story. The payout, however, in the second half of this novel, I felt was worth it. It came around. Some of the world development of this strange place that this man goes. Another minor spoiler. Remember how Bag of Bones is about a writer whose wife dies. Lisey's story is about a woman whose husband is a writer and he dies. Maybe in a parallel universe to what if Stephen King dies and how is my wife going to handle my affairs? Take it or leave it. Where he went with the paranormal stuff, people don't like. But in this case, I was hoping this book would go somewhere, and it did go somewhere. And that's why I like it enough to make it number 21. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what? Want to fight about it? Tell me in the comments. Now we're getting into, it's hard. It's hard to choose when we start getting up here in the numbers. This is number 20, top 20 now. And we're going back to the Dark Tower. This one dragged on a little too long for me. Did I like it? Yeah. The Wastelands. This is where we're really getting to know Blaine the Train and his many riddles. I was just wishing it would go a little bit faster. There were some pretty cool moments. I remember a lot of the moments. It's definitely worth checking out. And you will if you read the Dark Tower Journey. It's good because up until this point of the Dark Tower, you don't have to read too many other King works to understand what's going on. It's relatively early in the journey. I think after book 4, between 4 and 5, is where some extra knowledge could help you along your way. But it's up to you how you want to read it. The Wastelands, number 20. It's worth it. You're going to like Blaine the Train if you don't already love some of the other characters in the quartet. And if you don't now, they'll grow on you, don't worry. Check it out. Okay, number 19. We're talking about the Dark Tower. It's going to keep coming up. Black House. Even though I feel this is less a successor to the Talisman as much as it is like a Dark Tower supplemental novel, it might even say that. No, it doesn't, but it really is. This one really took me places. I really liked the character that was the blind man. Man, if I can't remember his name right now, he was something special. There were good characters in this book, and it's cool to think that the main character is the same boy that went on the journeys in the Talisman. However, there's a lot of different things. And if you are reading about the Dark Tower, this is a must read. So consider that. Okay. Am I out of order here? What's going on? I'll be right back. Okay, we are on number 18. This book has that sister book we talked about before, Gerald's Game. That is number 18, Dolores Claiborne. Man, I didn't know what to expect with this. Not the most famous, well heard of Stephen King book, but it was great. All told from the perspective of one woman, the entire thing. If I were to try to sell you this book and say, yeah, it's just the dialect of one woman telling the story, that doesn't sound very interesting, but it is. And you will like it if you read it. It's definitely more interesting than I thought it would be. And I do like how it ties in with the other book. However, it is a strange premise. Take it or leave it. This one stuck with me for a while. It was pretty memorable. Check it out. Dolores Claiborne. Now we're going into another Bachman book here. This is going to be number 17, Thinner. It's just eerie is all I can say. A gypsy tells a man he's going to get thinner, and thinner he gets. And what is going to happen? You're going to have to just read it and find out. It's a kind of eerie tale, and it's full, I remember of it being full of like King-isms that I liked. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm here for. This one has that. Thinner. We're talking about the good stuff now. We're in the number 17 right here. So it's only going to be good from here on out. And this one I've read relatively recently. I've seen the movie many times. Really love the movie. One of those King books that went perfectly to the screen. And that doesn't happen all the time whenever you take books to film. That would be Misery. You just have to read this one. If you don't know what it's about already, I'm not going to waste your time. You know what it's about. You've seen the movie. You know Kathy Bates is just a crazy loon and that James Caan really went through it all. But unless you read the book, you don't really know how bad this poor guy really had it. It gets worse. You're definitely going to want to check out what happens to that poor guy. And changing gears a little bit, what number are we on here? I keep losing my place, so don't mind me. We're on number 15 now. This one is not standard King books like I'm used to at all. This had a lot of domestic abuse and relationship troubles and a cat and mouse kind of thing. I was not expecting it. That is Rose Madder. This book blew me away. I went in with not high expectations and left really enjoying myself. There were some funny twists and turns, things that you wanted to happen or didn't want to happen, and unexpected turns, man. That's all I can say. It's great. Rose Madder, is it the best thing he ever wrote? No. But I'm going into 4 stars now for sure on this one. This one stuck with me. I was enjoying every page I turned to see what crazy thing would happen in this one. Rose Madder was good. Is it about the Dark Tower? I wouldn't really stretch it and say that it's like detrimental to your Dark Tower reading experience. However, it's worth it even if it is just a standalone book. Check that out. Alright, this one is going to be a chunky one. It is a Castle Rock story, if I'm not mistaken. This is one of those ones that we know about Castle Rock. We love Castle Rock. A lot of things happen there. So since we know about it, we can put a lot of cool references to other things that happened in Castle Rock. Boy, off the top of my head, I'm thinking Cujo, The Body. There's more. There's plenty more. Is it? No, not it. It isn't Derry. But there might be references to Castle Rock. But what I'm talking about right now is number 14, Needful Things. This one has a ton of references to other works that have come before in this town. But by itself, there's so many crazy things. A man will give you what you need if you pay the price. And he knows just what you need. You don't even know what you need. But he does. And you're going to get it. And you're going to pay for it. You get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. That's all there is to be said. Check this out. Number 14. It's big, but it's worth it. It keeps you going. There's crazy stuff that happens. What are you waiting for? And if we couldn't get much spookier than that, we're going to the spookiest. Probably the spookiest in my opinion. There's a reason it's number 13 on the list. That's going to have to be Pet Sematary. It's kind of a goofy addition that I have. But Pet Sematary, you know what this is about. It's creepy. There's dead things coming back to life. Your favorite fuzzy animals, for instance. And there's more to it than that. And just when you thought you've seen it all or heard it all, there's a crazy, creepy woman named Zelda. I don't know if that is the sister or... Yeah, that would be the wife's sister, I believe. Zelda. That's creepy. Creepier than all of the other creepy things that are going on. This is a pretty neat addition. Probably not worth much of anything. Pet Sematary. Man, that is creepy. I only read this one once early in my King career. Definitely worth a reread because spooky, man. Spooky. Alright, we're really getting down to her now, boys and girls. On to number 12, we have Revival. Like I might have mentioned before, I'm a sucker for some Lovecraftian-esque spooky stuff. This is full of spooky stuff. Some unexpected twists. It was good pretty much from beginning to end, to my knowledge. I remember liking this a lot. I didn't read it very long ago either. Revival. Definitely a good spooky read, if you like the spooky reads. Now we're going into number 11. This is his other nonfiction book, to my knowledge. There is one about baseball that I'm not so interested in reading, that he co-wrote with another author. However, this book on writing, I thought was really excellent. It was like I got to talk with my author. It's like he's talking just to you. He wants to tell you everything he likes and what he wants to know. It's definitely worth checking out. It doesn't really fit into the same category as a lot of these other books do. But man, comparing this to Danse Macabre is apples and oranges. This one is just an excellent read. Even if it is a collection of essays and some things that not even a collection of essays. It's just really him talking to you, the reader. I like that. So check this out. Next, we have another short story collection. Night Shift, number 10. The top 10. This book has so many stories that you've heard of that are memorable. Night Shift, Graveyard Shift is memorable, as well as Jerusalem's Lot, which is a prelude to Salem's Lot. Sometimes they come back. Oh, I definitely remember The Ledge and The Lawnmower Man, Quitters Inc. Some of those were included in the movie Cat's Eye, which also starred Drew Barrymore. A pretty cool watch if you've never seen that. Of course, Children of the Corn, The Man Who Loved Flowers. There's some pretty cool short stories in here. Very good ones. I mean, for the sake of variety and how many cool ones there are, there's a reason this is cracking the top 10 list, because there's not much bad to really say about this. There's a lot of good variety in here. Night Shift. You know what it is. Who doesn't love Night Shift? Come on, man. Top 10. Here we go. Number 9. The Gunslinger. The first installation to the Dark Tower series. I have a couple versions I want to show off. This is the revised version. If you didn't know, Stephen King went back and fixed up some of the little quirky things that he wanted to change to maybe make the story more cohesive with what he later wrote in the series. I don't have a problem with the revised edition, but I like the original edition. Give it to me the way you envisioned it. You'll see a lot of the things that he thought about in this book in his youth, he made them come true on paper. And they're really good. And a couple things were a little foggy in the details, but it works for all intents and purposes. I can let a couple things slide. This is a hard book to get into. It's like a Western book, and not other Stephen King books are like that. So this is easily difficult for people to get into. Everyone says, I quit at the Gunslinger. I didn't want to read on any further. Well, it gets better. And it's worth it to read through this because there's a lot of things that come true in this story. I think I read this story 3 times now, and I love it. It's great. There's a reason it is number 9 on the list. Moving on. More Dark Tower. Who would have thought? This one is beefy. People love it or hate it. It is all backstory. You already know what this is. It's Wizard and Glass. Dark Tower book number 4. Why do they hate it? Because, without saying too much, there's only little parts in this story that might really give you what you want. But the backstory part of this book is exceptionally well done. I was sucked into the backstory a lot, and I couldn't believe the crazy things that happened. It was a little long, don't get me wrong, but I had fun with the language and the little language barrier, the way they say things, which was expanded when we get to Wolves of the Calla. Some of the funny little lingo things, I like them. They sort of work. Sometimes they don't work. It is what it is. Wizard and Glass. Number 8 on the list. Yeah. We're getting down there, boys and girls. Number 7. Remember how I said some things you can throw them and stick them at the wall and see what it sticks and what doesn't stick? I'm not the first person to say that about some of Stephen King's ideas. And I'm not the first person to say that about this book, because number 7, The Regulators. This book was awesome. It had like Power Rangers and cowboys and Indians, and people were gunfighting and tack. There was a lot of crazy stuff going on here. Was it the most cohesive, best written thing ever? Maybe not, but man, it kept me really interested. Definitely needs a reread for me, because it might end up a little lower on my list. But man, when I read this was like my favorite for a while. I really just couldn't believe how much crazy stuff he cram-packed into this. And I read this before Desperation. So I had some sort of inclination to whether I like or dislike certain people. And then Desperation was completely different, and I liked that. You can have a whole separate video talking about the comparisons, the similarities and differences of those two books. But I preferred this one for its fast-paced nature and just crazy, zany things that happen. Check it out, The Regulators. Number 6. This book is another collection that has novellas, short stories, a mixture of the both, whatever way you want to label it. But I like it because it was cohesive, it kept the theme alive. I'm a sucker for a good concept album, even if that applies to books as well, I guess. And that's going to be Hearts in Atlantis. This has, oh my, this was a great story. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research myself here, what's going on in this book. Low Men in Yellow Coats. Tell me there's not some Dark Tower influence going on right here and right there. You don't even have to like the Dark Tower to appreciate how crazy this is, but if you do know what's going on, it makes it that much better. And the other stories, for some reason, it had a good nostalgic feel to it. To mention Danse Macabre once again, Stephen King was very fond of Ray Bradbury's Dandelion Wine, which is a homage to nostalgia, childhood love of summer times, and crazy things that can happen in small towns. I get a little vibe of that in this book. Hearts in Atlantis really stuck with me, and I'd love to read this one again, and I think you should too. Woohoo! Number 4. I'm just kidding. Number 5. Number 5 is going to be another short story collection. It's hard to rank them short story collections, especially now that they're coming up in the top 10. But man, Skeleton Crew. This was one of the first ones I really picked up. Some of these stories were just really appalling and shocking and weird, and I love them. However, I didn't like The Mist. The Mist didn't do too much for me. Once again, I'm going to have to reread it. But The Mist was not my favorite thing. However, Mrs. Todd's Shortcut was great. The Raft was pretty I hold that one pretty high. Survivor Type, are you crazy? That one was nuts. And when we start talking about The Milkman, those were pretty crazy. Flexible Bullet, there's so many. And most notably, The Jaunt, which is, speaking of Ray Bradbury, a very science fiction, strange story with some pretty bizarre and real things happening in it. Skeleton Crew, man. You can't go wrong. It's my favorite short story collection. It has some really great things. I'm a little partial in my opinions because this was one of the first ones I read. I held it in high regard. There's a couple flops in here too that I don't care for the monkey either too much. And there's a poem or two. It's okay. But the good ones outweigh the bad ones in this one. Skeleton Crew. Now we're really getting there. We're at number 4 now. And I also hold a lot of these close to me for personal reasons. Can't help myself. I was a fan of the film, and then I was a fan of the book. That's The Shining. Everyone loves The Shining for one reason or another. Of course, the book is different from the movie. I like them both equally for what they are. They're pretty cool stories. And I like how, as aforementioned, that Dr. Sleep took the movie and went with it that direction, and it took the book and it went with it in that direction. So they're separate things that you can compare and love, and they're both good. There are some scenes in here that you won't see in the movie, and after reading this, there are some things in the movie that might make a little more sense. And I'm mostly talking about a quick shot of a dude in a bear suit in a hallway. That's all I'm going to say about that. Or no, it's a dog suit. The dog suit. You'll know what I'm talking about. The Shining. Come on, man. Am I talking to myself? Are you kidding me? Top 3. Now we're talking about things that I just love. Just gotta love them. I hope you can agree. Tell me if I'm wrong. Number 3, The Long Walk. Written as Richard Bachman. This thing is short and sweet. It's about people walking. And they better keep walking or else something bad's going to happen to them. Use your imagination. How gripping can that really be? Oh, it is. You'll want to just keep reading this one. You got to know what happens. You're pretty attached to these guys. Everyone's in it for different reasons. Even though they're kids, they're semi-complex characters. You know who you love and you know who you hate. And you're rooting for more than one character oftentimes. Man, if I could read this one again for the first time, I wish I could. It's great. The Long Walk. Number 2. Save the best for last for when it comes to the Dark Tower series. You know what this one is. It's eye-opening. Everyone agrees. Maybe they don't. I love this one. It has its flaws, as do most books. Nothing's perfect. But man, this is touching 5-star territory for me. The Drawing of the Three. This was crazy. After you finally chug through the gunslinger and get to just wonder what is going to happen next, the Lobstrosities come and they bite your hand and rip your fingers off. Okay, that's all I'm going to say in the spoiler territory. But a lot of crazy things are happening here. Not what you thought was going to happen after reading The Gunslinger, and was something that is so jarring and unexpected when you sort of thought you knew what was going to happen. This thing paid off. Is it going to be as good on a reread? I've only done this one once. I don't know. I remember having a couple problems with certain people's personalities and the way they talked and their inflections and so on and so forth. I had a couple problems with that. But I like how he tied things together. He really did make this a full circle story that took the whole series into a completely different dimension. You know, how else can I put it? The Drawing of the Three. If I haven't sold you on the Dark Tower now, I'm never going to sell you on the Dark Tower. So just go out and read it. You're going to like it. And that leaves me my number 1 pick. What's he going to pick? Well, I've said most of his older works already. Maybe you've already figured it out. Maybe you just skimmed through this whole video just to see what I say. Well, I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. I picked this number 1 book because it is the most well-rounded, in my opinion. It really captures what King is capable of, which I think is what he was doing whenever he put it out. There's an essay, maybe in this book, but maybe in another one where he basically says that. It's a showcase, and rightfully so. Every story is great. That's different seasons. It's hard to pick what your number 1 favorite is, but man, I knew The Shawshank Redemption. It's great. I love it, and it's just as great on paper as the movie. The Body, the most perfect paper to film adaptation. It has to be. It's like page for page. It's great. I mean, it's a childhood favorite. If you haven't seen Stand By Me, maybe your childhood wasn't as great after all. But that doesn't mean you can't watch it now, and that doesn't mean that you can't read it right now as well. Of course, when I got to Apt Pupil, I was already sold, and I never saw that movie, and I never read that story, and it was great. It might have even been better than the first 2. And I already have a dark fascination for the Holocaust in World War II. What's not to be interested? I know it's not a great time in history, but it sure is interesting. Finally, just to wrap it all up, some people hate this story. The Breathing Method. It's dark, it's twisted, you don't know exactly what's going on, and it is sort of in a style of H.P. Lovecraft that I've already said that I like. What's not the best way to round off the number 1 book than a creepy story with just what an ending? Is there a twist? Am I going to spoil it? No, I'm not going to spoil it. It's just great. So check out Different Seasons, man. Number 1 for a reason. So that's Stever the Beaver's wrap-up of the top 48 best Stephen King books as of today in 2025. You know, everything is apt to change at any given time. So join me again for another book review, or maybe a cover song. We'll see you then.